Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Chatting with the Rev. Before we get started this afternoon, I want to make a shout out, send a shout out to my nephew, Amir Ross. He had hip surgery today, and he went through it like a champion, like I know he would. But he called me. He's home. It was an outpatient surgical procedure. But he is going to be laid up for about a couple of months with being hip. The hip is the largest joint in your body, and I had hip surgery 4 times myself. My niece of mine, when she was a teenager, she had hip surgery, and my wife last year she had hip surgery. So I guess he's keeping it in the family. He had hip surgery, but we're praying much that God will heal him, that God will deliver him, that God will strengthen him, and he'll be even healthier now than he ever was before. So shout out to Amir Ross. God bless you. I love you. We'll be visiting with you this week sometime. God is able. I know he is. He brought me through surgery after surgery after surgery. And I know the same God that was there in the 60s and the early 2000s will be there for him as well, because he's not a respecter of persons. And so we just lift him up. Lift up his mother, my sister, Rhonda. She's now going to have to be a caregiver, but I know that she's up to the task. She loves her children, both Amir and her other son, Avery, and she will do whatever's necessary. She's already doing it, really. Whatever's necessary to make his convalescing the more comfortable and the more complete. So now we're going to continue on with our program, and we're going to do that by reminding you that last week we talked about 10 ways that you can avoid ableism. 10 ways that you can avoid ableism. And we went up to number 5. God bless you, Pastor Moore. He's joining us today. We went to 5 of them. The first one that we discussed was taking the stairs. If a person with a disability needs to use an elevator, and I like what my wife used, the term my wife uses. She uses the term challenged ability. That's the new term. I always have a problem with this disability, even the term itself, because we know the definition. Merriam-Webster reminds us that the definition means those who are limited, disadvantaged, and disqualified to do anything. So with my wife coming up with this new term, challenged ability, I like that. Good afternoon, Terrence, one of my students at Hope Church School. God bless you for joining us again. But we talked about 5 of the 10 ways to avoid ableism. The first, we said, take the stairs. If a person with a disability, a person that is challenged, has a challenged ability, needs to use an elevator, and you're able and without difficulty to climb stairs, and you choose the stairs in favor of the person in a wheelchair. I've been in many instances, I've had to wait for the next car to come or another car after that to come before I could actually get on an elevator, because people that are able-bodied, that are able to walk up and down stairs, would push me out the way virtually, would at least make it so that they get to the elevator before I do, because I have to maneuver and all of that, and they can easily get on the elevator. Good afternoon, Madeline. So the first one is take the stairs if there's an elevator involved. If you're able to walk up and down the stairs, walk up and down the stairs, and let the person with a challenged ability use the elevator. Whether they're in the wheelchair, whether they use a walker, whether they have a noticeable limp, where they have difficulty in walking up and down stairs. And we know there's an exception to the rule. A woman who has a child in a stroller, certainly she or he, if he's pushing the child, should be able to get on the elevator. But we're talking about courtesy. We're talking about being mindful of the other person's need. There's my nephew, Eric. God bless you, Eric, for joining us today. Reminding you of the need of somebody else. We have to go back to those days, where we are considerate of one another, where chivalry is not dead, where respecting your elders is something that we revisit again. The second point that we made was that we need to understand that when we go into a restroom, that there are just a certain amount of spaces for people with disabilities, people with challenged abilities. There's only a certain amount of spaces. For every one space with a person with a challenged ability, there may be 4, 5, 6 spaces for those who are able-bodied. The same with handicap, quote, handicap parking. Many times people that have no physical disability at all rush to that spot and take the spot from someone else. Be considerate. If you can walk from point A to point B without any difficulty, why would you make it so that someone who can't even walk at all, or someone who cannot walk from point A to point A, has to struggle to get to where they need to be? Let's be courteous. That's the second way to avoid ableism. Remember, ableism is a discriminatory, prejudicial, and biased attitude toward people with disabilities. When you don't care about your neighbor who is disabled, whether they're developmentally have a challenged ability, whether they have a developmental challenged ability, a physical challenged ability, or a mental challenged ability, we need to be mindful of that. Be mindful. There are invisible disabilities, or what we call invisible challenged abilities. There's my cousin Karen Henry. God bless you. Glad that you're with us today. There are invisible disabilities: lupus, epilepsy, diabetes, manic depression. All can be defined as invisible challenged abilities or invisible disabilities. You can't see it, but it's there. Persons with cancer. It's an invisible disability. Sometimes you can't see it. Yes, there are cases where someone needs to have their leg amputated or whatever with diabetes and cancer. But in the earlier stages, when I believe in a disability, if you want to really define it in the real sense of the word, is anything that limits you, that alters your life just a tad in many instances, and many times more than a tad. A diabetic person can't eat any old thing, can't eat sugar and certain things. A person with heart disease can't eat certain things. They have to be in a certain kind of diet. A person with lupus and even MS, multiple sclerosis, they have to take certain medications to keep themselves functional. I know because I have a wife who has lupus and I have a sister who has MS. People that are epileptic, they have to take certain types of medicine so they don't have a seizure, or at least it reduces the attacks of seizure activity. I know because a very close person in my life had epilepsy, and I saw them in a seizure, having seizures, because I've seen them in many seizures, and I had to go and put something in their tongue so they wouldn't bite off their tongue, and all of this type of thing. There are disabilities that we see, like cerebral palsy, like muscular dystrophy. But there are others, spinal cord injuries and other things like that. They're visible. You can see them. Someone who's blind, someone who's deaf, someone who's short of stature. You can see. It's visible. There's some outward appearance of a limitation that you can observe. Here's another one of my cousins, Talia Miller. God bless you there, joining us today. These are visible disabilities. So we have one, if there's a situation where a person needs to use an elevator, who's in a wheelchair, who has a mobility disability, Yield that elevator space to them, and you walk up and down the stairs, those who have legs that are able to walk up and down stairs. It's only the right thing to do. If you're going into a restroom, don't use the stalls that are earmarked for persons with disabilities, with challenged abilities. Yield that space to them. There are many more spaces for you than them. Same with handicap parking. I hate that word handicap, but we got to use it because that's what the system calls it. Handicap parking. For every one space, there's 100 spaces for people that are able-bodied. Don't take the 1 or 2 spaces in a place that's earmarked for people who are in wheelchairs, who have other mobility situations, even respiratory situations. If you have chronic asthma, emphysema, cystic fibrosis, you can't walk like others can walk. It takes the breath out of you. Yield those spaces to people that need them. It's not a luxury, it's a necessity. The third point, don't patronize people that are disabled. That was what we talked about last week. We're just hitting on these because we want to get into 6, 7, 8, and 9, 10 today. Don't patronize people. We are people like you're people. People that have disabilities are the same as you are. Hello, dear. My wife, Teresa Jeanette Scott, Lady T, is with us. God bless you. There's no difference. Because I'm in a wheelchair, because I limp, because I have some other disability. Pastor Moore says it pains me that we even have to discuss this. But we have to. It's a sad situation. We have to. We have to keep it in the forefront so that we can do better. These are the 10 ways we can avoid ableism. That's discrimination, prejudicial attitudes, and biased attitudes toward people with disabilities. We have to keep it in the forefront so that we can change the way we look at people with disabilities. We take to heart the meaning of Merriam-Webster's dictionary, which says that disabled people are limited, they're disadvantaged, they're disqualified to do anything. We have to keep it in the forefront that, look at me, I was born with cerebral palsy. Diagnosed with chronic asthma when I was 12. 13, 14, and 15, I underwent 4 operations on my hip, ultimately replacing the hip, not with what they have today. There was no replacing it with a transplant or all that kind of stuff. No, they put big spikes in. They took out the ball and socket, put big spikes in. This is back in the 60s. There was no technology where you can replace the hip. No, there was no replacement. All they did was put a spike in there and let you go on your way. Been through it. But I got through it. And here I will be if I live to see November the 7th, 2016, I'll be 65 years old. And from the time I was 14 months old, I was diagnosed with CP. So that's virtually all my life. I've had some sort of disability. But like I always say, I may have cerebral palsy, but I refuse to have let cerebral palsy have me. I refuse to let it have me. And I don't like to be patronized. Poor little boy, talking to you like you're a child, acting like you're a child, addressing you, sometimes don't even address you at all. That's the next point. The next point is, don't always speak to us through able-bodied people. Don't always speak to us through able-bodied people. You know what that means? It means simply, if you want to know what I want for dinner, if I'm in a restaurant, and you want to know what I want to order, ask me. And if I don't understand what you're saying, I will let you know. I don't understand. Tell my wife, or whatever the case may be, whoever's with me. Hello, Tommy. Tommy Brown, Hiram Brown is with us. God bless you. He just celebrated a birthday this week. But treat people the way you would want people to treat you. If you were in a wheelchair, how would you want someone to treat you? If you were blind, how would you want someone to treat you? Even if you had Down syndrome, how would you want somebody to treat you? Whether it's developmental, or whether it's physical, or whether it's mental. If you're depressed, manic depression, schizophrenia, paranoia, ADHD, whatever the case may be, how would you want someone to treat you? Like you're a throwaway? Like you're junk? Like you don't matter? How would you want someone to treat you? Well, I say treat everyone the same. Treat everyone with respect and with honor and with dignity. Number 5 is don't always ask what happened. Now, I personally don't mind children asking me what is wrong, why am I in a wheelchair. When I used to walk with my limp, and I used to walk with a cane, or I walk with crutches, I didn't mind children come up to me and asking what's wrong, because I know it's an inquisitive mind. It's not a judgmental approach. I've had adults ask me that question, and when I answer it, I don't get the job. If I answered it, I didn't get promoted. If I answered it, whatever opportunity was out there for me was now pulled back and now reneged on. Sometimes people just want to know because they just want to know, and for no good reason. What are you going to do? Is your attitude going to change? Are you going to let me on the bus, and are you going to move your feet when I want to maneuver my wheelchair to get in? Or are you going to sit there and let me struggle with trying to get in and sometimes not even move at all, and the bus driver got to say nobody's cooperating, I can't let you on? Where's the consideration then? Where is the concern then? Be careful how you ask. There's nothing wrong with asking something about anybody. If you have a question to ask me, but do it in a way that's respectable. Good afternoon, Robert. Do it in a way that's respectable. And don't let that be the first thing that come out of your mouth. I'm more than this wheelchair. In fact, I'm not this wheelchair at all. This is how I maneuver. This is how I get around. This is not me. Who you're listening to now is me. When you meet me, you'll know who I am if you get to know me. Get to know me first before you start the $1,000 questions. How we like somebody to say to you the first thing, boy, why'd you choose to wear your hair like that? Or somebody come to you and say, why are you so light? Why are you so black? It's disrespectful. You wouldn't even approach anyone like that. It wouldn't even go through your mind to approach anyone like that. And yet we do it every day with someone who has a physical, developmental, or mental disability. Or what my wife says, and I love it, a challenged ability. Whatever, it's really easy to avoid. Whatever you would not appreciate for yourself, and attitudes that are flung at you. We as African Americans, we've had all kinds of attitudes over the centuries. Called all kinds of names, from the N-word to every other kind of word. We, in particular, should be sensitive to discrimination, prejudice, biases, stereotypes. Punching us all in one bunch. That's what patronizing is. That's what asking someone else what I want for dinner, or asking someone else what I need when I'm standing right there or sitting right there. Be careful how we treat one another. The sixth point, this is the new part now. The other we talked about before. But the sixth point is to make your venue accessible. And for those, we're talking in particular about those who have businesses, whether it's small, large corporations, whatever the case may be, make your venue accessible. I was asked to preach this past week at a church. A bishop friend of mine who I've known, we both were pastoring in the AME church. He now is out of the AME church as well as myself. But when we were pastoring, we were very close. And we stayed close over the years. And a woman asked him, did he know anybody in the city of Philadelphia that he could recommend to come and preach for her? And he recommended me. And when I told her that, that I would be happy to do it, but I want you to know that I get around by using a powered wheelchair. I do have a manual, so if that was, if I was able to do it, I could take the manual and somebody have to go with me, whatever. I said, is your church accessible? She said, oh, no, we have stairs. We have flights of stairs. I said, well, do you have any men that can maybe assist me? Because I can get up and I can walk in the sense if you have me and hold me and steady me, I can walk a certain amount of stairs, not a whole lot. She said a flight. I don't know about that, but I can certainly walk up a few flights and a few stairs. And she said, oh, no, we don't have that. And I said, my goodness. And I know there are many churches. I've been in church all my life. There are many churches that don't have accessibility for people who are disabled. People who have challenged abilities. They don't have accessibility to it. If you're deaf, how many churches have sign language interpreters? If you're blind, how many churches are accessible to you? Are there any Braille books in the church? Any Braille material in the church? Many people don't even want the C&I dog. I know there was a church I pastored. They're in Delaware. And a good friend of mine, over the years, he wasn't always blind, but he became blind. And he was a minister, actually, and a local elder in his church. And his church told him that he could not come back as long as he had a seeing eye dog. And so he asked me, he said, Reverend Scott, my church won't allow my seeing eye dog. Could I come to your church and visit? I said, certainly. Certainly you can come to my church and visit. He came with his seeing eye dog. And that dog was more quiet and more mannerly and more subtle and obedient and all the rest of that than some of the people in the church. I noted it too. You know me, I'm Rev. I noted that. I said, excuse me. Because I used to always say that my wife always teased me when if people are talking, I'm trying to talk. When I was pastoring the church and I would try to talk and someone is talking, I said, excuse me, I'll wait. I'll wait. And that day, the members of the choir were talking. And I said, I'll wait. And then I noted, I said, that dog that everybody's so concerned about, I haven't heard that dog whimper or whine. I haven't heard that dog try to get up and try to run or nothing. I said, that dog is more cognizant of the fact of where he is than some of you. Evangelist Barbara Mack, God bless you, my dear. Yes, I don't mind it. That same church, there was a young girl. She's now passed. And she had Down syndrome. And no one ever used the girl in any capacity at all. You know what I did? I got that girl part of the junior choir, because she was a little young girl then. A junior choir. I had made her an usher. She was the most faithful child. She would be there every single Sunday. Her name was Eunice. And she'd be there every single Sunday with her Bible in her hand. Couldn't read it, but she'd bring that Bible faithfully. I had officers that didn't bring their Bible to church. I had officers that didn't come to church every Sunday. I had officers that didn't sing in the choir or usher in the usher board because they thought they were beyond that. They were officers after all. You don't know what you're missing when you don't include everybody. And I'm talking about the people of the house of faith in particular. Because the Lord said, go into all the world. That's what Christ said as before he ascended into heaven. Christ also said that God so loved the world. Christ also said that you should go out and find the one lost sheep and leave the 99 to themselves while you're looking for that lost sheep. Christ also talked about a master that sent his servant out to get the lame and the maimed and the blind and the halt. That's what Christ said. When the disciples asked him about the man born blind, they said, who sinned? Was it the man's fault? Was it the mama's fault? Was it the daddy's fault? And Christ said it wasn't the mother, nor the man, nor the father's fault. It was so that God could get the glory. That from this man's difficulties, from his struggles, and from his rising above his situation, God can get the glory from it. Because God can use anybody. God can use anybody. And does use anybody. Ask stuttering Moses. Ask epileptic Paul. Ask limping and lame Jacob. Ask left-handed and withered right hand Ehud, one of the judges in the Bible. Who God can use. Ask Fanny Crosby, who wrote Blessed Assurance, Jesus is Mine, who wrote Pass Me Not, O Gentle Savior, who wrote Near the Cross. Ask Beethoven, who wrote the Ninth Symphony when he was deaf, who wrote his last 6 sonatas while he was deaf. Ask Franklin Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, who got us out of the Depression, who gave us victory over Nazi Germany and fascist Italy during World War II. Ask them. Be careful, dear hearts. Just be careful. So we need to make venues accessible. Don't bar people from coming into a place. And wherever you can, whether you have a business or not, advocate for this. Fight for it. We need to be in this thing together. Those who are able-bodied need to stand with those who have challenges to their ability. We need to stand together. Because Martin Luther King says when you slight one, you slight everybody. When you slight one, you slight everybody. Because today it's me you attack, tomorrow it's going to be somebody else you attack, and by everybody's under the thumb of Big Brother. That's how Nazi Germany started. Started with attacking, really they started with attacking people who were infirmed, those who have mental disabilities, those who had developmental disabilities, those who had physical disabilities. That was their first attack. Then came the Jews. Then came the Catholics. Then came the Russians. Then came the Gypsies. And on and on and on and on. When Jesse Owens won the gold medal in track and field in 1936, it was held in Berlin, Germany, and Hitler was the dictator, the chancellor, if you will, really the dictator of the nation. And when he won and beat one of his master race candidates, he walked out of the Olympics in protest that this black man, this African American, this inferior race beat one of his champions. When Joe Louis beat Max Schmeling for the World Heavyweight Championship of the world in boxing, when Max Schmeling came back to Germany, he came back in disgrace, being beaten by a black man. Discrimination and inequality and injustice to one is injustice to all. If I can't have justice met for me, by and by it will be taken away from you. That's how it works. It gets narrower and narrower and narrower, and in some ways broader in the sense of injustice, and narrow in the sense of the inclusion and exclusion. Only a certain group is worth anything. And that group gets smaller and smaller. So we got to stand up together. We got to stand up together. We got to avoid misguided comments like, I wish I had a chair. Or, man, you are so lucky to be able to get around using your wheelchair. What? You know, this wheelchair is not a luxury. It's a necessity. And more than that. Many times it's an inconvenience. My wife went somewhere on Saturday. I couldn't go because the bus that they went on don't accommodate wheelchairs. I can't just even get on a public transportation bus if there's too many people on there. I can't get on it. Or if the bus driver chooses not to take the time to stop and let me on, I can't get on it. Or if the people don't move their feet, I can't get on it. To not be able to do things you would like to do because you have to always check out the availability of your doing it. I'm not lucky. And there are people that can't get out of the chair at all. At all. They're going to be helped to be transferred from the bed to the chair and back again. They're misguided comments. They're uninformed comments. They're insensitive comments. I'm lucky that I got to use a chair to go from point A to point B. I'm lucky. If I want to go to the store, I got to get in the chair and hope that the door opens at the place I go in. There's only 3 stores in this whole area that I can go in. Now it's 2 because it's wintertime. One of the stores always has its door open. I can get in that one. And the other 2 have mechanical, automatic doors that automatically open. I can get 3 stores. You know how many stores around here? There are at least 20-some stores in this neighborhood. I can get into 3. Now I can only get into 2 because it's getting colder now and they don't keep the door open. Oh, yeah, I'm very lucky. Very lucky. Yes, I'm very lucky. I wonder how many people would like to have my luck. Think about it, dear hearts. Think about it. Think about your comments. Think about your attitude. Number 8. Everybody who has a challenged ability, what you call disability. Not all of us want to be able-bodied, so don't assume we all want to be healed. We're waiting for that day. We can't even move forward because we're waiting for the day. You know, there are some who have disabilities, those who have challenged abilities, who really do, you know, they don't even move in life until they can move in life the way they used to. And yes, I believe in miracles. Oh, yes, I do. I miss you too, Tommy. Oh, yes, I do believe in miracles. I believe in healing. But I'm not waiting for that to do whatever God called me to do. I'm not waiting for that manifestation. God has healed me in a lot of ways. I died twice in my life. Twice in my life I died. There's a miracle. God didn't want me to die. He had something for me to do. That's a miracle. I used to stutter. Had an awful stutter when I was a little boy. But God wanted me to be a preacher. So he worked it out so that he gave me somebody that was willing to work with me and see the God in me and what God had for me to do. And they worked with me and gave me pieces and parts and plays that were very long and very involved. Because one thing I always had was a good memory. And they knew that. I didn't have to read my notes like some of these people do now. Got to read the hymn before I can sing it. I got to read this and I have to read that. I have to read the other. I always had a good memory. I didn't need to read anything. You give it to me, I memorize it, I'm ready to do it. And as I kept on doing it, my speech impediment diminished. And every once in a while I'll get a little tongue-tied. Because that's a part of the CP. But I can deliver what God wanted me to deliver. He wanted me to be a preacher. He wanted me to be able to explain to people what he's given me to explain. Like I always say, he didn't want me to be Carl Lewis. He didn't want me to be Jesse Owens. He gave me what I needed to get done, what I needed to get done. I can preach even in a wheelchair. I can preach laying in my bed. I've done it. I'm doing it now. You all know that. Nothing that I can do that God wants me to do. And there's nothing you can do, whether you have a disability or not. There's nothing you can't do that God wants you to do. The problem is many of us, able-bodied and challenged abilities or not, many of us always are striving to be what we're not supposed to be, and we never find out what we really were meant to do. So we're frustrated because we can't do what John is doing. We can't do what Jill is doing. But have you thought about, maybe we need to find out what Gerald's doing, what Gerald's supposed to be doing, what Robert's supposed to be doing, what Teresa's supposed to be doing, what Hiram is supposed to be doing, what everyone here is supposed to be doing. What are you supposed to be doing? Karen and Talia, everyone, what are you supposed to be doing? You're never going to be contented as long as you're striving to be what someone else is. You'll never feel a sense of accomplishment until you find out what you are meant to do. Why the Lord put you in this earth. You'll never be content. You'll never be satisfied. You'll never have a sense of accomplishment as long as you're trying to fulfill someone else's dream and trying to make it your own. You'll never fulfill the purpose that you were put here to fulfill. And always remember, there's, like I said before, there's an occupation and there's a vocation. Many of us are involved with occupation. Most of us don't even know what our vocation is. Occupation is what that enables you to live. It pays the electric bill. It pays the rent. It buys your food. It gets your clothes. It gets your car. It gets your house. Whatever the case may be, those material things that you need to survive. That's what an occupation does. It gives you the finances to do those things. But your vocation is the thing that God put you here, that thing that God has caused you to do. The thing that God called you to do, the thing that God chose you to do. That's your vocation. And your vocation always reaches more than just yourself. It involves more than just your own aggrandizement. Your vocation always touches the lives of others. Your vocation always impacts the lives of somebody else as well as yourself. See, many of us have occupations that can become vocations as well. They intermingle. We know that. Pastors, particular pastors that actually have a church and they get a salary and all that type of thing, and they maybe have a parsonage and all of that, so they're being taken care of as far as their livelihood is concerned. But a pastor that only is using his pastorate, his ministry, as an occupation is not fulfilling God's purpose. You hear me? If all this is, preacher, is an occupation, something so that you can buy a house, something you can get a big car, something you can buy a jet, something that you can do and get a swimming pool, something you can, in the material world that you may want, now you got the money to get it, so you get it. If that's all this is to you, that's not what God calls you to do. God can bless you that way, and you should be blessed that way. No one's saying that. But if that's all there is to it, you're missing the most important part of it. Go feed my sheep. That's what he told Peter. Good afternoon, Brother Mark. Go feed my sheep. All my sheep. Even those that have been excluded from the pastures for too long. I want you to go back to your church, and I want you to count the heads of people who have physical, developmental, and mental challenges in your church. Then after you do that, I want you to, after you count the people that have physical, developmental, or mental challenges, I want you to count the people who have those challenges and who are functioning in the church as ushers or preachers or in some capacity are functioning in that church. So I just don't want you to count everybody's in a wheelchair. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, not just that. That's fine. That's the first step. Everybody with a hearing aid. Everybody that's blind. I don't want you to do it like that. I don't want you to ask everybody, you're diabetic, you have lupus and all. No, I'm not talking about that alone. That's the first step. To get them in is the first step. But then to utilize them. To tap into their gifts and their talents. Peter tells me in his epistle that everybody's born with at least one talent, with one gift. Everybody. And most of us have more than one. But everybody has at least one. Have you tapped into that person, or are you just so interested in getting them healed, working a miracle, wrought a miracle, or pitying them, that you never tap into who they are? You never discover their gifts and their talents because that's not a concern of yours. They're to be patronized, to be minimized, to be marginalized. So I'm challenging you. The day after tomorrow is going to be Wednesday. Many people got Bible study, prayer meetings, and other things like that. Many times people have prayer meetings on Friday. If you have a Sabbath day worship service or a Sunday worship service, I want you to count the people in your church that not only have disabilities, I want you to do that first. Not only have challenged abilities, I want you to do that first. Count them in your church compared to the numbers of the people in your church. And then count the ones who are deacons, ushers, in the choir, presidents of this board or that board, ministers in training or pastors. Count them. And then I want you to just look at that and see what is wrong with that picture. I want to tell you the truth. When we have to stand before the judgment seat, it's going to be a interesting time when God says, well, where's that sister that you were supposed to minister to, but you didn't have no time to minister to her because it takes too long to understand what she's trying to say? Why didn't you minister to that man that was a member of your church that was blind? Because of the dog? The dog has no soul or no salvation or nothing about him. All dogs go to heaven is a movie, cartoon, in fact. But what about the man behind the dog? You lost him. He may never come to church again because you didn't welcome him. I have friends that are agnostic and even atheists because they don't see the benefit of believing in a God who has people that ignore them and shun them and ostracize them. Let me tell you. You may say, well, that's not right to blame the Lord. Yeah, but we are God's arms. We are God's voice. Until you meet the Lord, the only ones that you can see are the people that represent him. That's why we call ourselves Christians. Or you call yourself Muslim. Or you call yourself Buddhist. Or you call yourself Jewish. You represent the faith. This is what our faith represents. This is who we are. This is who our God is. This is what we believe in. And if we don't believe in you, then why do you expect anybody to come to you? If I come to church time and time again, as an able-bodied person, if you went to that church, because I know people quit church at able-bodied because somebody didn't talk to them. Or they talked rude to them, or they ignored them, or this and that. We know people have started denominations because somebody didn't talk to them this morning. So they went ahead and started their own church. And yet you think someone with a challenged ability, whether it be mental, physical, or developmental, you think that they will just take any old thing and feel uncomfortable. I know people who have autistic children, and yes, they're going to be noisy. Yes, they may seem to be disruptive, and they may be disruptive, but you have to find a way to minister to them. Part of the reason why they're disruptive is because you ain't doing nothing to help them. They're just sitting there, listening to things they can't even comprehend. You know about you're a child. If you sit there, a child 2, 3 years old, even a child 15, 16 years old, if you don't give them nothing to do in the church, they're going to soon drift away from the church. And that's why the church don't have a whole lot of teenagers now. What am I supposed to do? Listen to this? What is there for me? What will inspire me? What will draw me? How can I meet the Lord? I can't meet him on your level. Talk about, eschatology and $10 words and all this stuff. No, I can't understand that. But if you can say Jesus loves you, Yahshua cares about you, and you show it, not just say it. You show your love by including them in every aspect of church life. If I never walk again, I should be able to come in the church and be a part of it. Not just sit there and wait for somebody to come along and touch my legs and touch my eyes and touch my neck and all. No, is that all we're there for? Is that going to be another notch on some preacher's belt? Is that all that we're there for? I wonder how we would have received Moses, his stuttering tongue. How would we have received him? I wonder. I can see everybody now jumping, in particular those ones that believe that healing for everybody and all, they'll be jumping in his face. Some people would be saying to him, you don't have no faith. God ain't going to use you. You can't even talk right. Where's your faith? It don't work like that, dear hearts. Let's go on because I want to get through this. Stop assuming we want to be able-bodied. In God's time, everybody's going to be able-bodied one day. Everybody. Bible tells me there's going to come a time that the lame will leap for joy, the blind man will see, and the deaf will hear. There's going to come a day. I'll let God determine what day that is for me. If he wants me to be healed, totally healed of my CP and every other condition I have, I'm going to leave that to God. And I'm not going to wait for that to happen for me to be a vessel to be used by him. Lord, use me right now. Whatever my purpose is, whatever my destiny is, reveal it right now. Lead me in that straight path right now. And stop always referring to us as inspirational. We talked about... I'm sorry, it looks like our connection's getting a little funny today, but that's okay. We're going to keep on pressing on anyhow. Inspirational. Because you think that whatever we do is exceptional, the person that can do it. Let me tell you, sometimes that can be kind of condescending. You know that? It's almost implying that if we can do it, anybody can do it. Or if you do accomplish anything, you're an exception to the rule. Because that's not the way a disabled person is supposed to do. Remember, a disabled person is limited, disadvantaged, and disqualified to do anything. So if you do something, even the most minuscule thing, if you do something, then you're an inspiration. Called exceptionalism. You're an exception to the rule. That's not the way everybody is. At one time, people like Frederick Douglass, W.E.B. Du Bois, were considered exceptional black people. Which means that's not how the average black person is. That's not how he thinks. That's not what he can accomplish. But these are exceptions to the rule. Barack Obama, that's what he was, the first black president. He's an exception to the rule. Don't look for this for every black person. They can rise to the presidency. Don't look to it like that. He's an exception. He's a credit to your race. That's what he treats many people with disability. You're an exception to your disability. Most people that have CP, they don't act like you. You're an exception. So what do you say about the other? There's 500,000 in this country. What do you say about the other? 400,099? That's not a compliment, really. It's what you call an offhanded compliment. It boosts you up, but it tears your people down. I don't want to be considered inspirational. I want to be considered someone who has an ability like anybody else does. We want to be treated fairly. We want to be treated like we are God's gift to the world. Special gifts. Not inspirational or exceptional, but special. I love my wife, that challenged ability. And everybody has a challenged ability to a certain extent. You know, everybody really, in a sense, is limited to something. I know people can't do what I'm doing. They would have a panic attack, sure enough, standing before people like I've stood, and even doing what I'm doing here. So there are your 10 ways to avoid ableism. We have to get rid of this discrimination and this bias and this prejudice that are towards people with disabilities. I know sometimes it's frightening to even have to interact. I know that because, say for the grace of God go I. I know that it can be intimidating because what do you say to someone who's different than you are, who doesn't fit the mold, like they told me at one time, doesn't fit the mold of what you expect the person to be like. I don't want to be exceptional. I just want to be treated like everybody else, but I want to be treated like everybody else. I want to be able to go where I want to go and do what I need to do without the hindrances. Good afternoon, Shawnette. Tasha, Davis, God bless you. I want to be treated like everybody else. I don't want to be an exception to the rule. I want justice for everybody. And just like people from other races fought in the civil rights movement to better the lives of African Americans and other minorities, it's going to take all of us to working together. That's why I love the fact that many of the people that are on this program that come faithfully don't have a physical, developmental, or mental challenge of any note. It doesn't impact their lives like it does some others, but they understand what we're trying to do here. And they understand that injustice for anybody is just injustice for everybody. You don't hear the presidential candidates talk about people with disabilities. They talk about everything else, even nonsensical stuff. But you don't hear them talk about what they're going to really do for people with disabilities. Because it really doesn't matter, though there are 60 million of us and 33 million can vote. And many of us are actually registered to vote. But we're not considered like some others. It's just the way it is. But things have got to change. And we're going to come every Monday and every Friday to put light on the discrepancies, on the inequalities, on the struggles of people who have physical, developmental, and mental challenges. Every one of us knows somebody. Some of us will be that person one day. And maybe that's what frightens people. One day I'm going to be that. Because really, just to say, 1 out of 4 people that are 21 years old now will be disabled by the time they're 50. And that's staggering. That's staggering. So it's a real thing. So the way that you treat people now who have physical, developmental, and mental challenges, the way you treat them now will be maybe the way you'll be treated when you have a problem or someone that you love has a problem. It bothers my wife when she sees how they treat me sometimes. It bothers my sister-in-law when they say, my daughter, when they see how, the very discriminatory way that I'm treated sometimes, and others like me. Denied opportunities, denied the availability to go out when it's a nice sunny day and go anywhere I want to go. You got to make special arrangements. You got to pick special spots, and you got to look up and down. We're trying to relocate from where we live. And it's a hard thing because some people say, and some advertisements will say, and even some businesses will say that they are handicap accessible. I mean, even churches say, oh, yeah, but then I say, well, I'm in a wheelchair. Oh, no, we can't accept wheelchairs. So it's not a blanketed thing. It's some apartments that we looked at that said they were handicap accessible. All they meant is they had no stairs. But they don't have no bars, no railings to help you move and navigate. They don't have anything that would be conducive for someone who has a visual impairment or one who has an audio challenge. Mm-mm. And we do appreciate everything that everyone does. So come back this Friday and we'll have another chat, just you and I, and invite others to chat. You can get us also at YouTube, G. William Scott. Go to YouTube and type in G. William Scott. It'll take you right to my spot. And you'll see all the videos and all the live presentations that we've made now in video form there. You'll see them all. And you'll be able to look at them again and learn and maybe be a part of this struggle. I'm really trying to get it to the point that we can really get an organization together so that we can move on some of these issues. Affordable housing, equity in jobs. We'll be talking about that next week, or this Friday, actually. We'll be talking about the disparaging ways that employers and even some people that employ physically and developmentally and mentally challenged folk, how they really do with them, how the monies aren't the same, and how they kind of abuse them in some ways. We'll talk about all that next time. Remember, my wife's program is on every Friday from 7 to 8, Turning Up the Gospel with Lady T. We ask that you'll tune in from 7 to 8 every Friday. Blog Talk Radio she's on, and a couple other stations she'll be on. Contact her through her Facebook. It's Teresa Jeanette Scott. Contact her about her program. She'll give you more details at that time. Until Friday, once again at 3 o'clock, we'll see you then. Keep looking up. God has a plan with your name written on it. Bye-bye. See you soon.